Hello, guys. Welcome to Timeless Story. Please subscribe and leave a like for us. It means the world to us. Also, share this video to your friends and loved ones and turn on post notifications so you don't miss future videos from us. Thank you as you do so. Sit back and relax as we dive into the story. Emma was 19 years old and lived in a tiny village called Willow Creek. The roads were dusty, the houses were made of mud and wood, and life was tough. She lived with her father, Mr. George, and her little brother, Timmy. Her mother had died when she was very young. Emma worked hard every day, fetching water, cooking, selling fruits in the market, and taking care of Timmy, who was only 7. Her father, George, was once a hard-working farmer, but after an accident on the farm, he hurt his back and could no longer work. He stayed home, groaning in pain and depending on Emma to do everything. They were poor, so poor that sometimes they didn't even have food to eat at night. Emma would go to sleep with an empty stomach just so Timmy could have her share. But Emma never complained. She was kind. She was honest. She always smiled, even when things were bad. The villagers liked her, but they also whispered behind her back, "Poor Emma. She's so beautiful, yet so unlucky." One sunny morning, Emma was walking back from the market with a basket of bananas on her head when she saw a shiny black car parked near the old mango tree. It was the kind of car she had only seen in magazines. Curious, she stood and stared. Out came a man in a black suit, dark glasses, and holding a white cane. He looked like he couldn't see, but he walked with so much confidence. The villagers gathered around. Whispers flew through the air like bees. Who is he? Is he lost? Did he come for someone? The man didn't say much. He just asked to speak with Emma's father. She quickly ran home to call him. Mr. George struggled to get up and walked slowly with Emma back to the mango tree. When they got there, the blind man introduced himself as Mr. Nathan. "I want a wife," Nathan said in a quiet voice. "And I've heard Emma is kind and strong." Mr. George blinked in shock. "You want to marry my daughter?" "Yes," Nathan said calmly, "and I will take care of your family. Forever." Emma's heart dropped. She didn't even know this man. He was blind. He was a stranger. Why would she marry someone she didn't love? But when she looked at her father, she saw tears in his eyes, not because he was happy, but because he was tired of being poor, tired of being useless. "Say yes, Emma," he said softly. "Say yes and save this family." Emma ran into the house. She cried all night. Her heart was breaking. But when morning came, she wiped her tears and told her father she would do it. For Timmy, for him, for their survival. The wedding was fixed for 1 week later. It was a small village wedding. No fancy decorations, no music band, just a few plastic chairs and a priest from the next town. Everyone in the village came to watch. They whispered again, this time even louder. Why would Emma agree to marry a blind man? He must have some money, or maybe she's desperate. But no one knew the truth, not even Emma. As the day came closer, strange things began to happen. One night, Emma woke up and heard voices outside. She peeked the window and saw Nathan talking to a man in a suit. She couldn't hear much, but she heard one thing clearly. "Don't let anyone know who I really am." Emma shook her head. What could that mean? Another time, she went to give Nathan his tea and found a silver watch on the table. It was glowing. She touched it and flipped it over. It had diamonds on it. Real diamonds. She quickly dropped it when she heard footsteps. "Nathan, this is yours," she said nervously, handing the watch back. "Thank you," he replied with a soft smile. "You're very honest." Emma began to notice more things. Expensive shoes. A phone that looked like it belonged to a millionaire. A smell of rich perfume. But how could a blind man in a village have these things? One evening, she asked him, "Where did you live before coming here?" Nathan answered, "Far away, in a world you can't imagine." She laughed awkwardly. "That sounds like a fairy tale." "Sometimes," he said, "fairy tales are real." Emma didn't know what to think. She didn't love Nathan, but she didn't hate him either. He was quiet, polite, and gentle. Still, her heart felt heavy. She was about to marry someone she didn't know. The night before the wedding, something terrible happened. Her little brother, Timmy, fell very sick. He couldn't breathe. His skin was burning with fever. Emma rushed to her father. They didn't have money for a hospital. She cried, holding Timmy in her arms, praying for a miracle. That same night, a knock came at the door. It was Nathan's driver. "Come with me," he said. Emma didn't even ask where. She just grabbed Timmy and followed. They were taken to a private hospital in the city. It was the cleanest, brightest place Emma had ever seen. Doctors came out running the moment they arrived. "Put him in room 3. Quick," they shouted. Emma watched as her brother was given oxygen, medicine, and warm blankets. In less than an hour, his fever dropped. He opened his eyes and smiled weakly at her. Emma couldn't believe it. "Who paid for this?" she asked. The nurse smiled. "Your husband-to-be. He gave us cash before you even got here." Emma stood frozen. What kind of poor blind man carries that kind of money? When she returned to the village the next day, everyone was already seated for the wedding. The priest was waiting. Her father looked proud. Timmy was feeling better. Everything looked perfect on the outside, but Emma's heart was full of questions. And when she stood beside Nathan at the altar and heard him whisper those strange words, "This wedding was never about love. It was a test, and you've already failed," her heart almost stopped. What did he mean? What was the test? Had she just made the biggest mistake of her life? Or was her life about to change in a way she never imagined? Emma stood frozen. Her eyes blinked fast. Her hands trembled. She wanted to ask Nathan what he meant, but the priest had already raised his hands, smiling brightly. "You may now kiss the bride," he said. Nathan didn't move. He turned his face slightly toward Emma, but he didn't smile. Emma forced a small nod, but inside, her mind was spinning. What did he mean by this wedding was never about love? It was a test? How had she failed? People clapped and cheered. Some kids danced around. Others threw small flower petals in the air. But Emma wasn't celebrating. She just stood there, staring at the ground, her thoughts racing. Nathan held her hand gently as they walked back to her father's house. That night, instead of joy and laughter, the room was filled with an odd silence. Emma sat beside her brother Timmy's bed. He was feeling better now, thanks to Nathan. She looked at Timmy's face and touched his forehead gently. Then she looked out the window at the stars. "Who is this man I just married?" she whispered. The next morning, Emma packed a small bag. She didn't know if she was running away or just going to clear her head. She walked toward the riverbank, her favorite thinking place. The sound of the water helped her calm down. But this time, her peace didn't last long. Suddenly, a man in a clean white shirt and black pants approached her. He had a walkie-talkie and looked like a bodyguard. Emma stood up fast, worried. "Are you Mrs. Emma?" the man asked. "Yes. I work for Mr. Nathan. He sent me to check on you." Emma looked confused. "Check on me? Why?" "Because he noticed you were troubled." That shocked her. Nathan couldn't even see. How did he know she was upset? "I'm fine," she said softly. The man nodded. "If you ever need anything, just tell me." Mr. Nathan gave strict orders to make sure you're safe and happy. Then he left. Emma sat back down, her thoughts even more confused than before. That evening, Nathan came to her quietly and said, "Come with me. I want to take you somewhere." He didn't say where. She followed him into a shiny black SUV that looked far too expensive for anyone in the village to own. The driver drove for almost 2 hours until they reached a big metal gate. When the gate opened, Emma's jaw dropped. Behind the gate was a giant mansion. The lights sparkled like stars. A water fountain danced in front of the building, and the windows stretched higher than anything she'd ever seen. It looked like a castle. "Whose house is this?" she asked, her voice shaking. Nathan smiled slightly. "Yours." Emma turned to him, thinking he was joking. "Mine." "Yes," he said. "I bought it long before the wedding." Emma's head spun. "But how?" "You said you were just a man looking for a wife." "I said I was looking for a wife. I didn't say I was poor." Emma's mouth opened, but no words came out. Nathan walked ahead of her, using his cane carefully as if he'd memorized every inch of the house. The inside was even more beautiful. Gold-colored railings, glass floors, fluffy carpets. A chandelier that looked like it came from a fairy tale. "This can't be real," she whispered. Nathan stopped and turned toward her. "It's all real, and it's all yours now." Emma sat down on one of the big white sofas. Her hands felt cold. Her legs were weak. Everything she thought she knew was falling apart. "But why did you come to the village pretending to be someone else?" she finally asked. Nathan sat down too. "Because I've been betrayed before, Emma. Many times. Women only wanted my money, not my heart. So I decided to hide who I am, to see who truly cares." He paused for a second, then added, "When I heard about you, how you worked so hard for your family, how you smiled even in suffering, I wanted to see if you were real." Emma's eyes softened, but her confusion stayed. "Then why did you say I failed?" Nathan didn't answer right away. He stood up and walked toward the window, placing his hand gently on the glass. "You agreed to marry me only after I offered help to your family," he said. "Not because you wanted to know me, not because you were curious about my heart, but because you felt trapped." Emma swallowed hard. I did it for Timmy and my father, not for money." "I believe you," Nathan said, but still it hurt. Emma looked down at her hands. For the first time, she didn't know how to feel. She thought she was marrying a poor blind man to save her family. But now she was sitting in a mansion with a secret billionaire who tested her without her knowing. Was she wrong? Was he wrong? The next morning, Emma woke up in a large bedroom with soft sheets and a view of a beautiful garden. It didn't feel real. She walked around the house, still shocked by everything. There was a room full of books, a kitchen that looked like it came from a movie, a pool in the backyard. Servants were walking around, greeting her with smiles. But something inside Emma still felt broken. When she sat with Nathan for breakfast, she finally said, "I don't know who I am anymore. I feel like a stranger in my own life." Nathan sighed. "I'm sorry if I made you feel like that." He then opened a small box in front of her. Inside was a diamond necklace. Emma gasped. "Why are you giving me this?" "Because you're still my wife," he said, "and I want to give you the life you never had." "But do you want me?" she asked. "Or just someone to test?" Nathan looked sad. "I want someone to love me for me." Emma stood up slowly. "Then maybe you should have just told me the truth." And with that, she walked out of the room, leaving the necklace behind. The following days were quiet. Emma stayed in her room most of the time, writing in a journal, walking through the garden, and helping the kitchen staff. She didn't know what to do with her new life. But things took a dark turn when someone from the village came to the gate. Mr. Kelvin, the richest man from Willow Creek. He had always wanted Emma for his son, but she had refused. Now, he came with a different plan. The guards let him in, and he met Nathan face to face. "You made a big mistake marrying that girl," Kelvin said with a sneer. "She doesn't belong in a place like this." Nathan didn't respond. Kelvin added, "But if you're tired of her, I can help you disappear. For a price." Nathan remained silent. Then he said calmly, "Get out." Kelvin laughed. "I know your secret. And if you don't do what I say, I'll tell the whole world." Later that evening, Nathan called Emma into his study. His voice was cold. "I need you to be careful," he said. "Someone is trying to destroy everything." Emma looked worried. "Who?" Before Nathan could answer, the power in the mansion suddenly went out. Everything turned dark. Then they heard it, a loud boom from the front of the house. A guard came running in, shouting, "Sir, the car garage is on fire." Nathan stood up fast. "Emma, go upstairs. Lock the door." Emma screamed, "What's happening?" Nathan's voice was loud now. "Someone wants to hurt us." Flames lit up the night sky as thick black smoke rose from the garage. Servants ran in every direction, shouting and carrying buckets of water. But the fire was too big. Emma stood at the top of the stairs, frozen, watching the chaos below. Her heart pounded so hard she could hear in her ears. She had never seen anything like this. Nathan, still calm despite the danger, gave quick orders. "Get the backup generator running. Call the fire department. Secure the front gate." His voice was strong. confident. It didn't sound like the voice of a blind man. It sounded like the voice of someone who had handled worse before. But for Emma, this was her worst nightmare. She turned and ran to the balcony, gasping as she saw the garage completely swallowed in fire. The cars, 3 of them, were crackling in the heat. And then she saw something else. A shadow. Someone was running into the bushes behind the house. Emma shouted, "There's someone back there!" Behind the garden. 2 guards rushed in that direction, but it was too late. The figure disappeared into the darkness. Whoever started the fire had gotten away. The fire was finally put out an hour later. Everyone was safe, but the damage was huge. 3 luxury cars, gone. Half of the garage wall, burned down. Emma sat beside Nathan in the study after the fire was out. Her hands were shaking. Her eyes were red from smoke and fear. "Why would someone do this?" she asked. Nathan was quiet for a moment, then said, "I told you, there are people who don't want me to be happy. People who only see me as a bank, not a person." Emma stared at him. "Was it Kelvin?" Nathan nodded slowly. "I don't approve, but it's his kind of message." Emma clenched her fists. "He can't do this. He can't scare us like this." Nathan reached for her hand. "That's why I need you to be strong. This is no longer just a test. It's real now. Dangerous. You're part of my life, and that means they'll come for you too." Emma looked down. She wasn't sure she wanted to be part of this life anymore. She thought she had married a poor blind man to help her family. Now she was living in a mansion with enemies, secrets, and fires. That night, she barely slept. She thought about Timmy, about her father, about the village, about her dreams, and about Nathan. Was she ready for this kind of life? The next day, things returned to a strange kind of normal. The burned garage was covered with large tarps. New security cameras were installed. Extra guards were posted at the gates. But Emma stayed quiet. She barely spoke during breakfast. Nathan noticed. "Are you okay?" he asked gently. "I don't know," she replied. "I feel like I'm living in a dream. A scary one." Nathan sighed. "You can leave, you know. I won't stop you." Emma looked at him, her eyes wide. "What?" "If you're not happy, if you feel trapped again, I won't hold you here." His voice was calm, but his face looked sad. Emma could feel his pain, even if he tried to hide it. "I don't want to leave," she said softly, "but I don't want to live in fear either." Nathan smiled faintly. "Then let's take back control." Emma frowned. "How?" Nathan leaned forward. "By going back to the village." "What?" she gasped. "We'll go back," he said. "Not as poor villagers this time, but as ourselves. We'll face them. Together." Emma wasn't sure, but something in Nathan's voice made her believe him. Maybe it was the way he never raised his voice, or how he always knew what to say. So they packed. 2 days later, Nathan and Emma returned to Willow Creek. The villagers couldn't believe their eyes. Emma, now dressed in fine clothes, stepped out of a black SUV beside Nathan. Everyone gathered around. The children stared. The elders whispered, "Is that Emma? She looks like a queen. Wait, that's a blind man. He's rich." No wonder she married him. Kelvin was nowhere to be found. Emma walked up to her old house and hugged her father and Timmy. Her father had tears in his eyes. "My daughter, look at you." Timmy jumped into her arms, smiling wide. "Emma, you're like a princess now." Emma smiled, but her heart was heavy. She hadn't come back just to show off. She had come to protect them. Later that evening, they all sat on the big mango tree, the same place where Nathan first arrived. A crowd gathered around. Nathan stood, cane in hand, and said clearly, "I didn't come here to pretend anymore. I came to tell the truth. I'm not poor. I'm not helpless. And I will not allow anyone to harm my wife or my family." The villagers gasped. "I also know," Nathan continued, "that someone here tried to destroy my home. Someone who is jealous. Someone who tried to hurt us." People began murmuring, looking around. Whispers flew. Then a voice came from the back. "You think you're powerful because you have money?" Everyone turned. It was Kelvin. He stepped forward, eyes filled with hate. You're nothing but a blind man hiding behind guards in gold. Emma stepped in front of Nathan. Leave him alone. Kelvin laughed. So this is your prince? He's blind. He doesn't even know what you really look like. Emma's face turned red, but before she could speak, Nathan raised his hand. I may not see with my eyes, Nathan said quietly, but I see deeper than you ever will. Kelvin growled. You think you can come back here and scare me? Then he did something no one expected. He lunged forward and grabbed Nathan by the collar. People screamed. Let him go. Emma shouted. But before anyone could stop him, Emma slapped Kelvin so hard his head turned. The crowd gasped. Silence. Kelvin stood still, holding his cheek, shocked. Emma's voice shook with anger. You will never touch my husband again. Nathan gently reached for her hand and whispered, Thank you. Then, suddenly, police sirens blared in the distance. 2 police vans pulled up. Officers jumped out. Kelvin turned pale. Nathan spoke again calmly. You're under arrest for arson and attempted assault. Kelvin stuttered. What? You can't prove. I have camera footage, Nathan said, and a confession you made to my guard, who was recording. The officers grabbed Kelvin and put him in handcuffs. The crowd cheered. As they dragged him away, he shouted, This isn't over. I'll be back. Emma stood beside Nathan, shaking but proud. The crowd erupted in applause. One of the elders stood up and said, Emma, we were wrong about you. You are stronger than we ever knew. Emma nodded, her heart finally beginning to settle. But just as she turned to Nathan and smiled, he collapsed, right there, on the ground. Emma screamed, Nathan? His face was pale. His hands were cold. Nathan, somebody help. Nathan, wake up, please. Emma cried, dropping to her knees beside him. His face was pale like chalk. His lips had lost their color. His breathing was slow, too slow. People rushed forward. Her father held Timmy back while the crowd formed a circle, whispering in panic. A few men tried fanning Nathan with their shirts, while one of the guards called for an ambulance. Emma held his face in her hands, tears running down her cheeks. You can't leave me. Not now. Please. Just a moment ago, Nathan had stood strong and proud, defending her, standing up to Kelvin and exposing everything. And now, he was lying on the dusty ground, barely breathing. The ambulance came fast, sirens screaming louder than the villagers. The paramedics jumped out and carried Nathan into the back, placing a mask over his nose and checking his heartbeat. You'll have to ride with us, one of them told Emma. She climbed in beside Nathan, clutching his hand the whole way to the hospital. She didn't even feel the bumps on the road or notice the crowd chasing after the van. All she saw was Nathan's face, his eyes shut tight, his body still. Please, God, don't take him, she prayed silently. At the hospital, he was rushed into the emergency room. Emma sat in the waiting area, rocking back and forth in the plastic chair. Her dress was dirty, her hair messy, but she didn't care. The love in her heart was all that mattered now. That was when it hit her. She did love him. Somewhere between the quiet breakfast, the gentle smiles, the thoughtful gifts, and the way he stood up for her, she had fallen in love. Even if he had tested her, even if he had lied at first, he had shown her more respect and care than anyone ever had. I can't lose him, she whispered over and over. A nurse finally came out. Are you his wife? Emma jumped to her feet. Yes. Is he okay? The nurse gave a small smile. He had a stress-triggered collapse. His heart is sensitive, but he's stable now. You can see him soon. Emma's knees almost gave way. She sat back down, covering her face in her hands, whispering, Thank you. After an hour, they led her into the room. Nathan was lying on a hospital bed, eyes still closed, but his breathing was steady. Emma walked over and held his hand, whispering softly, You scared me, Nathan. Don't ever do that again. His lips moved slightly and he whispered back, I thought I lost you. When I collapsed, the last thing I heard was you screaming my name. That's how I came back. Emma laughed through her tears. You're so dramatic. He smiled weakly. You married a billionaire. Drama comes free. Emma leaned down and kissed his forehead. I didn't marry a billionaire. I married a kind man who just happens to be one. For the next few days, Nathan stayed in the hospital to rest. Emma never left his side. She read to him, fed him, and talked about funny things from the village. Sometimes he laughed. Sometimes he just smiled, but her presence kept his spirit strong. One morning, Nathan looked thoughtful. Emma, I need to tell you something important. She nodded. I'm listening. You remember the test I talked about? Before the wedding? Emma nodded slowly. It wasn't just to see if you were kind, he said. It was to see if you would fight for me. Not because I'm rich, but because I'm me. She looked confused. Why would I have to fight for you? Because I have enemies. Not just Kelvin. Real ones. Powerful ones. I didn't just hide in your village to test you. I hid to survive. Emma's eyes widened. Wait, what are you saying? Nathan leaned in closer. Someone close to me tried to kill me before. In my own company. Emma gasped. What? Nathan nodded. That's how I went blind. It wasn't natural. Someone poisoned me. Emma clutched his hand tightly. But why would anyone do that to you? Because they wanted my money, my company, my name. But I escaped. And I hid until I met you. Emma's breath caught in her throat. So this is bigger than Kelvin? Nathan looked deadly serious. Much bigger. And I think whoever it is knows I come out of hiding. The fire at the mansion? It might not have been Kelvin after all. Emma stared at him. Then we're not safe yet. No, he said. But now we fight. The very next day, Nathan was discharged from the hospital. As they left, his driver handed him a folder. Nathan opened it, then passed it to Emma. Inside were photos, documents, bank transfers, and a name circled in red. Jacob. Emma frowned. Who's Jacob? My cousin, Nathan said coldly, and the man I trusted with everything, until he tried to steal it all. Emma felt a shiver run through her spine. She had seen Jacob once, at the mansion weeks ago. He had come by to check on Nathan, pretending to be concerned. Emma hadn't thought much of him then, but now everything made sense. He poisoned you, she whispered. Nathan nodded. And now he's trying again. Emma didn't wait. Then we expose him. We call the police. We show them this. Nathan looked at her. He's too powerful. He controls parts of the media. The police won't touch him without real proof. Emma clenched her jaw. Then we'll get real proof. That night, Emma couldn't sleep. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling, thinking of a plan. If Jacob wanted war, then she and Nathan would give him one. But as the moonlight filtered into the room, something strange happened. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. It said, You've chosen the wrong side, Emma. You'll regret this. Emma sat up in bed, heart pounding. Another message came in. Next time, it won't be just a garage. She grabbed the phone and showed Nathan. He frowned, then called his head of security. Double the guards. Now, Nathan ordered and tracked that number. But it was already clear. They were being watched. Emma wasn't just the wife of a secret billionaire anymore. She was the target of a dangerous enemy. And the next strike might be aimed at her. Emma's hands trembled as she held the phone. The messages glowed on the screen like something out of a nightmare. You've chosen the wrong side, Emma. You'll regret this. Next time, it won't be just a garage. She stared at them for a long time, her mind frozen. Her stomach turned with fear. But deep inside, something else stirred. Anger. Rage. Whoever this person was, they were trying to scare her. But they didn't know who they were messing with. Nathan noticed a fire in her eyes. Emma, I need you to be careful now. This isn't like the village drama with Kelvin. Jacob is dangerous. He's already tried to kill me once. Emma looked up, her voice steady. Then let him try again. But this time I won't let him win. Nathan smiled faintly. That's why I chose you. The next morning, the mansion was crawling with new security. Cameras had been installed on every corner. 2 armed guards stood at the front gate, and another pair were stationed at the back. Emma noticed them checking every delivery, every car, even the gardener's tools. It felt like a fortress now, but it didn't feel like home anymore. That day, Nathan met with his lawyer, Mr. Anthony. They sat in the study for hours, reviewing documents, speaking in hushed tones. Emma stayed nearby, listening as much as she could. "We need proof that Jacob forged those bank transfers," Anthony said. "That's the only way to bring him down legally." Nathan nodded. "He used my blindness against me. Had me sign papers I couldn't read. It's all hidden in those files. But without witnesses, the court won't listen." Emma suddenly had an idea. "What about that day Jacob came to the house? The one time I saw him? Didn't he say something suspicious?" Nathan turned to her. "What do you mean?" He said something like, "It's better you stay quiet, cousin. Your wife doesn't need to know everything." Nathan's lawyer sat up. "Did you record that?" Emma shook her head. "No, but I remember clearly." Anthony rubbed his chin. "Still not strong enough. We need him caught in the act." Emma thought for a moment. "Then we set a trap." Nathan turned to her. "What kind of trap?" Emma's voice was firm. "One where he thinks he's winning." The plan was dangerous, but it had to work. Emma would pretend to be angry with Nathan. She would leave the mansion, return to the village, and make it look like she had given up on the marriage. The goal? To lure Jacob into thinking she could be used, manipulated. If he approached her, if he tried to pull at his side, they'd get it on video and expose everything. Nathan hated the idea. "What if he hurts you?" Emma smiled. "Then he'll be making the biggest mistake of his life." That evening, Emma packed a bag and stormed out of the house, yelling just loud enough for the guards to hear. "I'm done. You lied to me, Nathan. You think money fixes everything. I don't want this life." She got into the village taxi, slammed the door, and left, leaving behind a perfectly staged fight, just like they planned. By nightfall, she was back in Willow Creek, staying with her father and Timmy. The villagers gathered around, whispering again, "She's back." She left him? But why? She must be crazy. Emma let the rumors fly. She acted cold, disappointed. She sat at the edge of the well in the evening, sighing loudly so people would hear. It didn't take long. 3 days later, while walking to the village market, Emma was approached by a man in a gray suit. His face was sharp, his eyes cold. "Mrs. Emma," he said with a polite smile. "Or should I say, Miss Emma again?" Emma narrowed her eyes. "Who are you?" "I work for Jacob," he replied smoothly. "He'd like to speak with you." Emma kept her voice steady. "About what?" "About your future." She nodded slowly. "Where?" The man handed her a note. "Tomorrow, at the Blue Palm Hotel, in the next town. Noon. Come alone." He walked away, disappearing into the crowd like a shadow. Emma quickly called Nathan and told him everything. "We've got him," Nathan said. "I'll send 2 undercover guards. They'll wire the room and record everything. Just act natural." The next day, Emma arrived at the hotel. It was a tall building with gold letters and tinted glass windows. She wore a plain dress and simple shoes to look unimportant. The guards were already inside, posing as hotel staff. One of them nodded at her and whispered, "Room 204. He's waiting." Emma knocked softly, and Jacob himself opened the door. He looked just like she remembered. Tall, confident, with a fake smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Emma," he said, "welcome." She stepped inside. "Why did you ask me here?" Jacob poured himself a drink. "Because I know Nathan told you lies." Emma kept her voice low. "He didn't lie." Jacob laughed. "Oh, sweet girl. He always lies. That's what rich men do." She crossed her arms. "What do you want from me?" Jacob sat down. "I want your help. Help me take control of the company. Sign a few papers. Say Nathan's mind is no longer stable, that he can't run things. In return, you'll get a house, money, a new life." Emma stared at him. "You want me to betray my husband?" Jacob smiled. "He's already betrayed you." Emma leaned forward. "And if I say no?" His smile disappeared. "Then your family will pay the price." Emma's face turned cold. "Is that a threat?" Jacob raised his glass. Call it a promise. That was it. Everything they needed. The hidden camera in the flower vase caught it all. His threats, his offer, his lies. Emma stood up. You're going to regret this. Jacob laughed. I don't think so. But just then, bang, the door burst open. The guard stepped in, guns raised. Behind them came 2 police officers, followed by Nathan himself. Jacob's face turned white. Nathan removed his glasses. You always underestimated me, cousin. Jacob's jaw dropped. You can see? Emma gasped. Wait, what? Nathan nodded. I was blind, but months ago I had surgery. I never told anyone, not until now. Emma's mouth hung open. You could see this whole time? I wanted to catch him without warning, Nathan said, his eyes locked on Jacob. Now I have everything I need. The police officer stepped forward and placed Jacob in handcuffs. You're under arrest, one said, for fraud, blackmail, attempted murder, and more. As they dragged Jacob out, he shouted, You think you've won? I still have power. I'll get out. Nathan simply turned to Emma. No, you're done. The guards left. The room was quiet. Emma turned to Nathan, still in shock. You could see me all this time? Nathan walked over and smiled gently. Yes, I saw your courage, your kindness, your strength, and today I saw something else. He took her hand. I saw the woman who saved my life. Emma blinked back tears. I thought I married a blind man, but now I see I married a warrior. Nathan leaned in close. And I married my queen. Just then, Nathan's phone rang. He answered, listened quietly, and then looked at Emma. They found something else, something hidden in Jacob's office. Emma looked concerned. What is it? Nathan took a deep breath. They found a second name. Another enemy. Emma's eyes widened. There's someone else? Nathan nodded. And this time it's someone inside the mansion. Nathan's words hit Emma like a thunderclap. Someone inside the mansion? Her heartbeat sped up. You mean someone living with us? A staff? A guard? Nathan gave a slow nod. We don't know exactly who yet. But Jacob's files included messages, coded ones. One of them said, Our eyes are inside. She trusts me already. Emma's blood ran cold. She? They met me. Nathan didn't say anything for a moment. Then he whispered, Yes, which means someone close to you has been feeding Jacob information. Someone pretending to care. Emma's stomach twisted. She tried to think. Who had she trusted in the mansion? The head chef? The maid who brought her tea every morning? One of the guards who smiled politely as she passed? Her mind raced. Back at the mansion, things seemed normal at first glance. The staff greeted them as usual. The floors sparkled. The flowers were fresh. But Emma now saw everything with different eyes. Every smile looked suspicious. Every good morning, ma'am, felt like a lie. Nathan called a meeting with the top 5 most trusted staff members. Emma sat beside him in the large office, watching each one carefully. There was Martha, the sweet housekeeper who'd help her unpack on her first day. Thomas, the loyal driver who always opened the car door with a kind grin. Brenda, the young cook who often shared silly jokes with Timmy when he visited. Mr. Cole, Nathan's personal assistant. And finally, Henry, the newest guard, quiet and serious. Nathan looked around the room. Someone in this house has betrayed us. The staff looked shocked. Some gasped. Martha even started crying. I would never, she exclaimed. Sir, I've served your family for over 20 years. Nathan nodded slowly. I want to believe all of you. But the truth is, someone helped Jacob. Someone told him when Emma left the mansion. Someone who knew our plan. Emma stood. This wasn't just about money anymore. Jacob wanted to hurt me, and someone here gave him access. Henry, the quiet guard, suddenly cleared his throat. Sir, ma'am, may I say something? Everyone turned to him. I've been noticing something strange, he said. Brenda, the cook, she often uses the study's back hallway, the one with no cameras. I caught her there 3 times in the last 2 weeks. Brenda's face turned red. I used that path to get to the garden faster. The flowers. The garden doesn't have strawberries, Brenda, Emma said slowly. You told me last week you were going to pick some there for Timmy. Brenda blinked. I must have meant tomatoes. Nathan's voice was calm but firm. Security will search your room now. Brenda stood up fast. What? Why me? What about him? She pointed at Henry. He's the one making stories. But it was too late. The guards checked her room. 10 minutes later, they returned with a small metal box. Inside were several memory cards, and one was labeled Jacob Confidential. Brenda burst into tears. I didn't want to do it. I swear. He paid me. He said he'd help my family. Emma's jaw clenched. So you sold me out for money? Brenda dropped to her knees. I didn't know he wanted to hurt you. I thought he only needed updates. I didn't know it would go this far. Nathan's voice was cold now. You passed along every move we made. You almost got my wife killed. Guard stepped forward and took Brenda away. She screamed, begged, but the damage was done. Emma stood there, silent, watching it all. She had trusted Brenda, laughed with her, shared food with her. Now, betrayal sat heavy in her chest. That night, Nathan walked into her room, holding a warm mug of tea. Couldn't sleep? He asked. Emma shook her head. It's hard to close my eyes when I don't know who to trust anymore. He placed the mug down and sat beside her. You were brave today. I'm tired of being brave, she whispered. I just want peace. A simple life. No secrets, no enemies, no fear. Nathan nodded slowly. Then maybe we should leave. Emma turned to him. Leave? The mansion? Yes, he said. Let's disappear for a while. Somewhere quiet. Somewhere safe. I'll shut down the company temporarily. I'll protect you and Timmy. We can go anywhere in the world. Emma thought about it. A small house by the beach. Timmy running barefoot on the sand. No more guards. No more schemes. But then she said, if we leave, Jacob wins. Even from jail. Nathan looked surprised. You want to stay? I want to fight back, she said. Not with guns, but with truth, with kindness, with strength. Nathan smiled. You're stronger than I ever was, Emma. They stayed up talking until sunrise, planning new steps to protect themselves and the company. They agreed to restart investigations, reach out to honest board members, and clear Nathan's name completely. The war wasn't over, but the enemy was weaker now. But just when it felt like peace was returning, another storm rolled in. 2 days later, Emma received a letter in the mail. It had no return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper with a short sentence. You destroyed Jacob. Now you made an enemy of us all. Attached was a photo, a blurry picture of Timmy. At school, Emma's hand flew to her mouth. Her little brother was being watched. She ran to Nathan, heart pounding. They're going after Timmy. Nathan took one look at the photo and immediately called the security chief. Pulled Timmy out of school. Now, bring him to the mansion. Double his protection. Emma felt her knees go weak. They're trying to break me. They want to scare me. Nathan looked her in the eyes. Then we show them something even scarier. What? A woman who will never back down. That evening, Emma held Timmy in her arms as he slept. His chest rose and fell peacefully. But she knew the danger was far from over. The enemies weren't just Jacob or Brenda. There was a bigger web out there, and they had just declared war on her. But Emma had changed. She was no longer the poor village girl afraid of a forced marriage. She was the wife of a billionaire. She was a survivor, and she was ready for whatever came next. But just as she turned to leave the room, boom, the lights flickered. The glass windows shattered. A small fireball exploded near the mansion gates. Emma screamed and dropped to the floor, covering Timmy. Nathan came running. They've attacked the mansion. Another explosion rocked the walls. Smoke filled the air. The sharp scent of fire and burnt wood hit Emma's nose as she shielded Timmy with her body. Glass shards were scattered across the floor. The explosion had blown out the front windows, and the mansion shook under the force like it was made of paper. Nathan rushed into the room, grabbing them both. "Are you okay?" he shouted, coughing from the smoke. "I'm fine. Timmy's fine," Emma replied, holding her brother tightly. "What's happening?" Someone threw explosives over the gate. Small devices, not military grade, but enough to send a message. "Another warning," Emma whispered. "No," Nathan said, his face hardening. "This isn't a warning. It's a declaration." Sirens wailed in the distance. The mansion security lights turned red as the system went into lockdown mode. Guards swarmed the property, some helping injure staff, others securing every door and window. Firefighters arrived, dousing the flames that had started near the gates and garden. Emma, Nathan, and Timmy were escorted to the panic room, a secure chamber hidden beneath the mansion. It had food, clean air, power backup, even satellite phones. Nathan had designed it years ago for emergencies like this. Inside, the room was quiet. Too quiet. Emma sat on the couch, hugging Timmy, who was shivering in her arms. "Why won't they stop?" she whispered. Nathan knelt beside her. "Because they're scared. You exposed Jacob. You shook their network. They're lashing out." "Who are they?" Emma asked. "Who are we really fighting?" Nathan sighed. Jacob wasn't alone. He was working with a group, powerful investors and corrupt officials who wanted control of my company. I suspected them for years, but I never had proof. Now they know we're getting closer to the truth. Emma's voice was soft but firm. "Then let's finish what we started." Nathan placed a hand on her shoulder. "There's one more name, one final person who holds everything together. The leader of the group." "Who?" Nathan looked into her eyes. "My stepmother." Emma blinked. "What?" "Her name is Victoria," he said. "My father married her when I was a teenager. After my father died, she became a board member. I didn't trust her, but I never expected her to be this dangerous." Emma's heart dropped. She tried to kill her own stepson. "She tried to steal everything," Nathan said. "And when I didn't give in, she turned Jacob into her puppet." Emma shook her head in disbelief. "But why?" "She already had wealth." "She didn't want wealth," Nathan said. "She wanted power." Just then, a call came to the panic room's secure line. It was the head of security. "Sir, the house is under control. Fire's out. No serious injuries. But we found something at the gate." "What?" Nathan asked. "A note, written in red ink." "Read it," Nathan ordered. The guard hesitated. "It says, 'Next we take the boy.'" Emma felt the blood drain from her face. "Timmy, they're targeting him," she gasped. "We have to get him out of here." Nathan nodded. "I'll send him to a secure location. Somewhere they'll never find him." "No," Emma said quickly. "I'm going with him." Nathan looked at her, torn. "Emma, you're the only reason I've made it this far. If you leave now—" "I have to protect Timmy," she said, tears in her eyes. "He's just a child. He doesn't deserve this." Nathan nodded slowly, then reached for her hand. "Then let's do this right." That night, under cover of darkness, Nathan's private jet was fueled and waiting. Emma, Timmy, and 2 top-level guards boarded the plane, heading to a remote island estate that Nathan owned secretly, one even his enemies didn't know about. As the plane took off, Emma looked out the window at the city lights below, wondering how everything had changed so fast. From a poor village girl with no dreams, to the wife of a billionaire, now a mother figure on a run from killers. But she refused to break. When they landed, the island was quiet, peaceful, surrounded by palm trees, blue waters, and white sands. A safe haven. For the first time in weeks, Timmy smiled again. He ran across the beach barefoot, giggling as the wind blew through his hair. Emma let out a deep breath. They were safe, for now. Back at the mansion, Nathan stayed behind with his team. He'd had enough of running, enough of hiding. It was time to fight back. He dug deep into his company's files. Years of hidden records, secret meetings, bank statements. He found names, faces, connections, and all of them led back to Victoria. "She's been pulling the strings for over a decade," Nathan told his lawyer. "Jacob was just a mask. She was always the monster. The plan was simple but dangerous. Nathan would call a shareholders' emergency meeting and expose everything, every name, every document, every illegal deal. But on the morning of the meeting, something went wrong. One of Nathan's guards didn't show up for duty. Then two, then a third. When Nathan checked the cameras, several had gone dark. Someone had infiltrated the mansion. Nathan's phone rang. He answered it, expecting a security team, but the voice on the other end chilled his blood. It was Victoria. "Hello, Nathan," she said calmly. "I've been waiting for this call." "What do you want?" he growled. "To make a deal," she replied. "I don't make deals with people who try to kill me." She laughed. "You don't have a choice." "Why?" he spat. "Because I know where Emma is." Nathan's heart stopped. Victoria's voice dropped to a whisper. "Nice little island. Pretty view. Shame if something happened to your precious Emma and her brother." Nathan stood still, phone shaking in his hand. "I swear," he said, voice trembling, "if you touch them—" "Then sign the company over to me," she said coldly. "Tonight, or I promise, the next explosion will be on the beach." Nathan's hand tightened around the phone. His knuckles turned white. Every part of his body screamed to stay calm, but inside, a storm raged. "Don't touch them," he said slowly, his voice like thunder before lightning strikes. "I'll give you what you want, just don't hurt them." Victoria's laugh was soft, chilling. "That's better. I knew you still had a heart. Meet me tonight. Midnight. Bring the company transfer papers. And come alone." The line went dead. Nathan stood in silence, staring at the phone. A guard walked in, but Nathan held up a hand. "No one leaves. Lock down the house. But don't tell anyone where I'm going." The guard hesitated. "Sir, what's going on?" "I have to protect Emma and Timmy. At any cost." Meanwhile, on the island, Emma sat on the porch watching the waves roll in and out. Timmy was fast asleep inside, worn out from a full day of playing in the sun. For the first time in weeks, she felt almost peaceful. But that peace was shattered when a strange drone buzzed low over the water. It stopped, hovered near the house, and dropped a small box on the sand. Emma froze. She stood up slowly, eyes glued to the box. It was black, clean, no markings. One of the guards ran over and opened it carefully. Inside was a phone. Just one missed call. No number. No name. Emma pressed it. A video began to play. It was Nathan, tied to a chair in a dim room. His face was bruised. Blood trickled from his lip. And then Victoria's voice rang out. "Hello, Emma. I see you're enjoying your little island paradise. But if you want to keep it that way, tell your husband to stop playing the hero." Emma dropped the phone. "No, no, no, no." She ran to Timmy's room, locked the doors, then called the emergency line Nathan had given her. Back at the mansion, Nathan was indeed preparing to meet Victoria, but on his terms. He wasn't really alone. Hidden inside the lining of his suit was a micro camera with live streaming. His loyal security head, Mr. Rayner, was watching from a control room, along with law enforcement agents who had finally been convinced to get involved. Nathan boarded a private car and headed to the meeting point, an abandoned warehouse on the edge of the city. Inside, Victoria stood like a queen in black, her eyes sharp and cold. "Well, well," she said with a smirk. "You came. I knew your little wife would be your weakness." Nathan stood tall despite the pain in his ribs. "You made one mistake, Victoria." She tilted her head. "Oh, what's that?" "You thought I was still blind." With that, he took off his glasses and looked straight at her. She froze. "You had surgery," she whispered. "I've seen you for who you really are," Nathan replied. "For a long time." Before Victoria could react, a voice blared through the warehouse speakers. "This is the National Fraud and Crime Division. You are surrounded. Do not attempt to flee." Lights flashed from every direction. Victoria's guards panicked, pulling guns. But before a single shot could be fired, the warehouse was stormed. Victoria tried to run, but Nathan stepped in front of her. "You never cared about family," he said quietly. "You only cared about power." Victoria laughed bitterly. "And you'll never survive in this world without it." He looked her dead in the eye. "Maybe, But at least I won't destroy people to get it. She was taken into custody. The police recovered laptops, drives, secret recordings, everything needed to dismantle the web of corruption she'd built for years. Back on the island, Emma finally got a call from Nathan's secure line. She answered on the first ring. "Nathan, are you okay?" "I'm fine," he said, his voice warm and tired. "It's over, Emma. She's gone. We're free." Emma sank to her knees, crying with relief. "You're coming here, right?" she asked. "First thing tomorrow," he promised. "We're going to start over. Somewhere safe. Quiet. Just us." When Nathan finally arrived at the island the next day, the sun had just begun to rise. Emma ran to him the moment he stepped onto the beach. He opened his arms and held her tight, burying his face in her neck. "I thought I'd lost you," she whispered. "I thought I'd lost me," he replied. "But you helped me find myself again." Timmy came running and jumped into Nathan's arms. The three of them stood together, holding on to each other like the world didn't matter anymore. And for a moment, it didn't. Later that evening, as they sat on the porch watching the waves, Nathan pulled something from his pocket, a small box. Emma's heart skipped. "What is that?" He opened it. Inside was a new ring. Simple, elegant, with a tiny sapphire in the center. "I know we already had a wedding," he said softly, "but that one wasn't for love. This one is." Emma covered her mouth, tears streaming down her cheeks. Nathan knelt down on one knee in the sand. "Emma, will you marry me again? This time, not for your family, not for money, but because we both know we were meant for each other." Emma couldn't speak. She just nodded and whispered, "Yes." They kissed under the stars as Timmy cheered in the background. But even as joy filled the air, a shadow watched from afar, deep within the trees at the edge of the island. A man in black, speaking into a phone. "She said yes," he muttered. "They think it's over." A crackled voice replied, "Let them believe it, but soon we'll take everything." The moon shone brightly over the island, casting a silver glow across the waves. Emma and Nathan sat close on the porch, fingers entwined, while Timmy played nearby, humming to himself. It felt like the calm after the storm, the kind of peace they had both longed for. The worst was over, or so they thought. Miles away, hidden among thick palm trees, the man in black lowered his binoculars and whispered into his earpiece, "They're vulnerable now. Happy. That's when it hurts the most." The voice on the other end gave a chilling reply. "Proceed." The next morning began quietly. Birds chirped. The sea whispered its usual lullaby. Timmy ran through the trees, chasing butterflies while Emma prepared breakfast. Nathan was inside the small home office, scanning through emails from trusted board members and legal teams. They were rebuilding the company piece by piece. It was going well, until they heard Timmy scream. Emma dropped her cup and ran. "Timmy!" She found him near the beach, staring at a small box buried halfway in the sand. Emma's heart dropped. Not again. She carefully pulled it out and opened it. Inside was a single photo, a picture of her, taken just minutes ago. Behind the photo was a sticky note. "This time, we finish what Jacob started." Emma's knees went weak. Nathan rushed over, read the note, and instantly called Rayner. "We have a breach," he said. "Someone is on the island." Rayner's voice came fast. "That's impossible. We control the only air and sea routes." "Then check again." Nathan snapped. "They're here." Within an hour, Nathan's private security scoured the island. Drones searched from the sky. Boats were checked. Forests combed. They found a small boat hidden under leaves, tucked behind a rocky cliff on the far side of the island. Supplies, a tent, satellite equipment, and most disturbingly, blueprints of the island estate. Nathan held one of the blueprints in his hand. "They were watching us for days." Emma clutched Timmy tighter. "We're not safe, even here." "I know," Nathan said, jaw tight. "But I won't run again. I'm done running." Back at the house, Nathan activated the estate's high-security system. Every door, window, and hallway became locked behind armored glass. The beach was now patrolled every hour. Still, Emma couldn't sleep that night. She kept thinking of the photo. Who was a new enemy? Jacob was gone. Victoria was in prison. But Nathan had warned her before. It wasn't just one enemy. It was a whole network. Emma sat up in bed, whispering to herself, maybe we've only cut off the head, but the body's still alive. The next day, something strange happened. A letter arrived via boat, hand-delivered by the island's private postman. It wasn't addressed to Nathan. It was for Timmy. Emma frowned, confused. She opened it carefully, and what she read made her stomach drop. To the little boy who doesn't belong, we're coming to take you back. There was no name, no return address, just a symbol at the bottom, a snake coiled around a diamond. Nathan stormed into the room when he saw Emma's face. What's wrong? Emma handed him the note with shaking hands. He read it once. Then again, his eyes went dark. I know that symbol. Emma stared at him. What is it? He turned to her slowly. It's from an underground group called the Vipers. They work in the shadows. Steal companies. Destroy families. They've been connected to illegal adoption rings, child trafficking. Emma gasped and immediately pulled Timmy into her arms. They're after him? Nathan nodded. They must think he's not your real brother. He is, she cried. I raise him. I change his diapers. I love him like a son. Nathan's voice was soft now. Then we'll protect him with everything we have. Later that evening, Nathan called an emergency virtual meeting with global law enforcement partners he had once helped fund through his charity foundation. He showed them the note, the symbol, the threats. One agent, a woman with short blonde hair and a firm voice, leaned into the camera. That group doesn't make empty promises. If they've targeted you, it's personal. Nathan nodded. We'll need every layer of security. And I need a plan to take them down for good. While Nathan worked with the authorities, Emma spent the next few days creating a safety routine for Timmy. Private tutors, supervised play, and a bodyguard assigned solely to him. But she couldn't stop worrying. Every time she heard a sound outside, her heart jumped. One afternoon, she walked past Nathan's office and paused. He was on the phone. No, don't involve Emma in that part, he was saying. It's too dangerous. Just trace the money trail. Follow the offshore accounts. If we find out who's funding them, we'll know who their real leader is. He hung up before Emma could walk in. She backed away quietly, confused. Why didn't he want her involved? What was he hiding? That night, after Nathan fell asleep, Emma slipped into his office and opened his laptop. She didn't want to invade his privacy, but something didn't feel right. She searched recent files and found a folder named Operation Serpent. She clicked. It opened a map, the island surrounded by red marks. Then, something even more shocking, a document showing that the Vipers had infiltrated Nathan's company years ago. Some of his own board members were funding the criminal group. They weren't just after Timmy. They were after everything. Emma sat back, her hand over her mouth. This went far deeper than she thought. Suddenly, a noise behind her. Nathan. He stood in the doorway, arms crossed. You read it. Emma stood up quickly. I had to. Why didn't you tell me? Because I didn't want you to carry this burden. I'm your wife, she said. I carry it with you, always. He walked over, pulling her into a hug. Then we'd do this together. The next day, Nathan made a public announcement through his company's media team. A shocking statement. He exposed 3 top board members involved in laundering funds through shell companies, each connected to the Vipers. The news exploded across the world. Emma stood beside him during the live broadcast, strong, unshaken. But the very next morning, a package arrived on the island. No name, no message, just a small pink shoe. Emma stared at it, horrified. It belonged to Timmy. She ran to his room. He was gone. Timmy! Emma screamed, bursting into his bedroom. The covers were thrown aside. The window was open. The curtains fluttered gently in the wind. A small trail of dirt led from the balcony down to the garden. The guards were nowhere in sight. Nathan rushed in behind her, his face pale. Where is he? Emma held up the tiny pink shoe, her hand trembling. They took him, Nathan. They took our boy. Nathan turned the hallway. Sound the alarm. Lock down the island now. Sirens blared. Lights turned red. Doors slammed shut. Guards scrambled from all corners of the estate, barking into radios, searching every inch of the island. Boats were sealed off. Helicopters were launched into the sky. But Timmy was gone, vanished without a trace. Emma dropped to her knees, sobbing. This is my fault. I should have never brought him into this life. Nathan crouched beside her, holding her tight. No, this isn't your fault. This is theirs. And I swear, Emma, I will bring him back. An emergency response team arrived from the mainland an hour later. Drones, heat scanners, trained dogs. They found footprints near the eastern cliffs, tire marks, and broken twigs. One of the guards, a young man named Daniel, was missing too. Emma stood still as the lead agent explained. The boy was taken by boat, a speedboat. We're tracking the direction now. But we believe he's already on a plane. Emma's head spun. What do they want with a little boy? They want leverage, Nathan said darkly. They know he's everything to us. But deep down, Emma feared something worse. What if this wasn't just about leverage? What if Timmy was a target for something they hadn't discovered yet? Later that evening, Nathan's laptop pinged with an anonymous email. He opened it. A video loaded. It showed Timmy sitting in a chair inside a darkroom, looking tired but unharmed. His eyes were wide with fear. Behind him, a man in a black mask spoke with disguised voice. If you want the boy back, the voice said, you'll dissolve your company. Walk away from everything. Send a video confirmation by midnight tomorrow. Then the screen went black. Emma clenched her fists. We have to give them what they want. No, Nathan said. If we do, they'll destroy more lives. And they'll never let him go. Emma looked at him, desperate. Then what do we do? We turn the trap on them, Nathan said. We give them exactly what they want, on the surface. That night, Nathan made a fake video. In it, he appeared to sign a company dissolution document, officially shutting down his billion-dollar empire. The video looked real, but behind the scenes it was filled with subtle clues. Morse code in the blinking lights, hidden data in the background audio, breadcrumbs for law enforcement to track. Emma stared at him. You really think this will work? I don't think, Nathan said. I know. The video was uploaded anonymously to the dark web. The bait was set. Now all they could do was wait. Hours passed. Nothing. Then finally, another message arrived. A set of coordinates. No words, just numbers. Emma and Nathan jumped into action. A helicopter was prepped. Armed agents climbed aboard. And within minutes, they were flying to a remote island off the southern coast. The island wasn't on any public map, just a grade out in the ocean. They landed on a hidden runway surrounded by thick jungle. The team spread out in silence. Emma, wearing a bulletproof vest, held her breath with every step. Then they found it, a bunker built into the side of a rocky hill. Nathan signaled the team. Move in. Quiet. The agents breached the door, storming the underground hallways. Gunshots rang out. Voices shouted. And then, Emma, Nathan, I found him, one of the agents called out. Emma ran, heart pounding, and found Timmy in a small, locked room, curled up in a blanket. Mama, he cried, reaching out. Emma burst into tears and scooped him into her arms. Oh, my baby. I've got you. I've got you. Nathan stood beside them, placing his hand on Timmy's head. You're safe now. You're going home. But just as they turned to leave, a figure stepped out of the shadows. It was Daniel, the missing guard. He pointed a gun at them. I didn't want it to go this far, he said, tears in his eyes. They said they'd kill my family if I didn't help. Emma stood in front of Timmy. Daniel, please. You don't have to do this. Nathan slowly raised his hands. Let us walk away. You can come with us. We can protect your family. Daniel hesitated. Then, bang, a gunshot echoed. Daniel dropped his weapon and collapsed. Behind him stood one of Nathan's agents, gun smoking. Emma clutched Timmy tighter. Let's go. Let's just go. They escaped the bunker and flew back to the island. Timmy was checked by doctors, fed, and finally fell asleep in Emma's arms. Nathan stood by the window, staring at the ocean, eyes dark and unreadable. "They'll come again," he said. "This won't stop until we tear the whole network down." Emma looked up. "Then let's finish it. For good." Nathan nodded. "There's one last name," he said. "The man funding it all. The one behind everything." Emma leaned forward. "Who?" Nathan pulled up a photo on his tablet. It showed a man in a white suit, smiling beside politicians. Nathan whispered, "His name is Vincent Black. He's not just funding the Vipers. He created them." Emma's eyes narrowed. "Then he's the reason I was forced to marry you. The reason you were poisoned. The reason Timmy almost died." "Yes," Nathan said. "He's the devil behind the curtain." Emma stood slowly. "Then it's time we pull the curtain down." The next morning, the island felt different. Still, quiet, too quiet. Timmy slept peacefully, unaware of the storm that still raged just beyond the waves. Emma stood by the window, watching the sunrise, her arms wrapped tightly around herself. Nathan stood beside her, tablet in hand, the photo of Vincent Black still glowing on the screen. "So this is the man behind it all," Emma said, her voice low. "The one who turned our lives into a nightmare." Nathan nodded. "Vincent isn't just a businessman. He runs a global web of corruption, blackmail, trafficking, illegal businesses hidden behind charities and luxury hotels." Emma clenched her jaw. "And he nearly destroyed our family." Nathan set the tablet down on the table. "But now we go after him." The plan they began to form wasn't just about revenge. It was about justice. Vincent Black had stayed hidden for decades, protected by layers of powerful people, fake identities, and private security. He was a ghost in the world of the rich. But ghosts could be caught. Nathan contacted his global allies, lawyers, whistleblowers, cyber experts, even former spies who owed him favors. They began collecting every piece of evidence they could find. Old deals, secret recordings, hidden accounts. Emma joined in, working side by side with him. Every night, while Timmy slept peacefully in the next room, they worked to expose Vincent. Then, after a week of hunting, they found the crack. A private resort in Morocco. Vincent was scheduled to attend an invitation-only gala. It was a secret charity auction where only billionaires and world leaders were allowed in. No cameras, no press, no police. It was the perfect place to corner him. But they needed to get inside. Nathan called his top agent, a woman named Layla, former intelligence, now working undercover for Nathan's private network. She walked into the island's command room in a leather jacket and combat boots. "I hear we're crashing a party," she said with a grin. Nathan nodded. "You'll go in with Emma." Emma's eyes widened. "Me? He doesn't know your face. But he'll recognize me instantly. You're our secret weapon." Emma took a deep breath. "Then let's do it." That night, Layla trained her how to walk in heels like royalty, how to listen without reacting, how to ask the right questions and catch the smallest lies. The next day, Emma boarded a private jet with Layla, flying across the ocean toward the Moroccan coast. Meanwhile, Nathan stayed behind, coordinating with international forces who had agreed to intervene the moment Vincent Black was exposed publicly. The gala was held at a grand palace overlooking the sea. Lights sparkled like diamonds. Luxury cars lined the driveway. Champagne flowed. Soft classical music played as wealthy guests arrived in glittering gowns and designer suits. Emma wore a long gold dress, her hair pinned up, her eyes cold and sharp beneath thick lashes. She wasn't just a poor village girl anymore. She was a warrior. Inside, Emma and Layla blended in perfectly. They smiled politely, sipped from their glasses, and listened. And then they saw him, Vincent Black, tall, handsome, powerful, dressed in white, laughing as if the world belonged to him. Emma's hands balled into fists. Layla touched her arm. "Stay calm. Wait for the signal." They watched as Vincent spoke with guests, flashing fake smiles and making false promises about charity and hope. Emma wanted to scream, to shout the truth to the whole room, but she held it in. Then Layla slipped her a tiny earpiece. Nathan's patched in. "We're ready." Nathan's voice came through the earpiece. "Emma, The USB drive is in your purse. It's loaded with everything: financial fraud, trafficking reports, wiretaps, photos. Plug it into the projector in the main room. Make the world see him." Emma nodded, her heart pounding. She moved through the crowd, weaving carefully, heading toward control room where the media projector was hidden. 2 guards stood nearby, but Layla caused distraction by knocking over a table. While the guards turned to help, Emma slipped inside. She found projector, plugged into USB, and hit play. Then she walked back into the main hall. The lights dimmed, the music stopped, and then, on every screen around the ballroom, photos of Vincent's secret dealings appeared. Bank records, contracts, surveillance footage, testimonies. Gasps filled the room. Vincent's face turned from smug to stunned. "No, no, this is fake," he shouted. "This is lies." But then his own voice played over the speakers. A secret recording from a deal years ago. "They're just children. What do I care? As long as the money flows." The crowd erupted. People screamed. Security guards rushed toward the doors. But Layla was already calling in the authorities. Within minutes, the Moroccan military stormed the palace. Vincent tried to run, but Nathan's team was ready. They cornered him at the exit, guns raised. "You ruined everything," Vincent spat at the agents. "No," Layla said. "We just gave it back to the people." Emma walked up to him, tears in her eyes but fire in her voice. "You almost stole my family, but you didn't win." Vincent laughed bitterly. "You think this changes anything?" Jacob's legs gave out as he collapsed at the mansion gates. Guards rushed forward, guns raised, but Emma screamed, "Wait! He's warning us." Nathan ran to him, kneeling beside the bloodied man who had once betrayed him. Jacob's face was pale, smeared with dirt and bruises, his shirt torn. His chest rose and fell rapidly. "Jacob," Nathan said firmly, "what are you doing here?" Jacob coughed and grabbed Nathan's sleeve. "You don't understand. Vincent wasn't the top. He wasn't the final one." Emma stepped forward, still holding Timmy's hand. "What do you mean? He was the leader." Jacob shook his head, eyes wild. "Vincent was just a puppet, like me, like Victoria. There's someone else. A man named Grayson. They call him the Ghost. No one sees him. No one hears him. But he runs everything." Nathan's jaw tightened. "Why should we believe you now?" Jacob looked directly at Emma. "Because they're coming for you." Suddenly, a loud explosion shook the earth beneath them. This time, not at the mansion, but in the distance. The mountain behind the island erupted in flames. A massive tower of smoke climbed into the sky. Sirens blared again. Everyone froze. One of the guards shouted from the watchtower, "Sir, the main airstrip is under attack. Someone's trying to block your escape route." Emma grabbed Timmy tightly, heart racing. "It's happening again. It's not over." Nathan looked at Jacob. "Why are you helping us?" Jacob coughed hard. "Because I finally see it now. The life I thought I wanted, the power, the money, none of it matters. I lost everything. And if I don't help you, they'll come for me too." Nathan stood and turned to the command center. "Evacuate the island. Now, get the jet fueled. Send coordinates to Layla. We're not waiting for them to trap us." Emma's voice was shaking. "Where do we go?" Nathan pulled out his phone and opened a map. "There's one place no one knows about. My father's original estate in northern Canada. Hidden in the forest. No cameras. No satellites. No tracks." Emma nodded. "Then we go. But we don't run this time. We plan. We end it." The staff quickly packed. Guards helped load supplies into emergency cases. Jacob was treated and sedated, then taken aboard with 2 agents monitoring him. As the sun began to set, the family boarded the jet: Nathan, Emma, Timmy, and a handful of loyal security. From the sky, the island looked peaceful again, but beneath that calm, war had already begun. 3 hours later, they landed on snow-covered land, the trees tall and thick, blanketing the world in silence. The cabin was small but strong, powered by solar and completely off-grid. Inside, Emma sat beside the fireplace, holding Timmy close, while Nathan looked through documents and intelligence reports. "Grayson," he muttered. "That name's been whispered before. A ghost at investor meetings. Anonymous donations. Hidden votes. Always in the shadows." Emma stood. "Then we bring him into the light." Just then, the tablet pinged. Layla appeared on screen. "We found him." Nathan sat forward. "Where?" "Zurich, Switzerland. He's hosting a secret meeting with the remaining members of Vincent's council, people we thought disappeared." Emma frowned. "How do we get in?" Layla smirked. "I already did. I hacked into their security system. We have the location, the time, everything." Nathan stood. "Then let's end this. For good." 3 days later, dressed in black, Emma and Nathan boarded a stealth plane to Zurich, leaving Timmy with Layla and a full team of guards at the cabin. The meeting was being held inside a luxury ski resort at the top of the Alps. No cameras, no IDs, just coded invitations. But Emma and Nathan had a secret weapon, the exact same method Grayson's men had used to sneak into their lives. Fake identities, forged passes. They got in. Inside the meeting room, men and women in suits sat around a long glass table, toasting champagne and talking in low voices. At the head sat a man no one else in the room seemed to make eye contact with. Grayson. He was older than Emma expected, calm, wearing a gray wool coat and dark gloves. Nathan leaned toward Emma and whispered, "That's him." Then Emma stood. She walked forward confidently and said, "Mr. Grayson?" The room fell silent. All eyes turned. Grayson looked up slowly. "And who might you be?" Nathan stepped beside her. "Your end." Suddenly, the giant projector behind them lit up with live footage of Layla raiding Grayson's data center, of law enforcement swarming his hidden banks, of arrested officials being dragged into black vans. Grayson blinked slowly. You're the village girl." Emma stepped closer. "And you're just a man who thought he could break families by silence and steal lives." He stood calm. "You won't survive this." Nathan smirked. "We already did." Just then, doors burst open. Interpol agents flooded the room. Guns raised. Grayson was arrested on the spot. He didn't fight, didn't scream. He only smiled and whispered, "There will always be another me." Emma whispered back, "Then there will always be another me to stop you." 3 months later, life was quiet, peaceful. Emma, Nathan, and Timmy were finally living in their seaside cottage, gardens blooming, the ocean singing outside their window. Emma had started a school for children who had been hurt by the Viper's operations. Nathan had rebuilt his company, smaller, focused only on kindness, honesty, and purpose. Timmy laughed more now. He no longer had nightmares. And every evening, they sat together on the porch, holding hands and watching the sunset, free at last. From poor village girl to the wife of a blind billionaire, to the hero of her own story, Emma had learned the most powerful truth of all. You don't need eyes to see love. You don't need riches to find happiness. And even the smallest voice can bring down the loudest giants.